Baylor's currently at 218 points right now. And points are dictated by the guys that you've landed, which is number 13 in the entire country. If you get to 220 points, here's the significance of that. Since 2015, only 6 schools have ranked outside the top 25 in recruiting ranking with a point total over 220. Baylor's already at 218. If they land 2 more commits, maybe 3 more commits, which I think they could in this class, they're easily going to get over that number, and that's going to give them a great chance to finish inside the top 25. They're just sitting in a great spot unless decommitments happen or the national rankings just decide they're going to kill them at the end, or just an anomaly, because history tells us that if they're able to get to that number, they're going to have a fantastic shot at being top 25 and maybe even a ceiling of being a top 20 recruiting class in the nation.
Is it really true? You tell me that they have a chance to finish top 20 to top 25. I mean, do they also have to pay every player $25,000 to get there?
No. No,
wow,
they don't.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Some schools have to, but Baylor doesn't have to, and they're in a great spot, and they've basically held true with the guys that are committed. They've been able to hold on to them. Now they still got to fight some battles at the end to hold on to some guys, but if they're able to, I mean, they're sitting in a fantastic spot to really reach a landmark goal for this program, to be honest.
Man, I'll tell you, if you got the means at your disposal to go play in the NIL game real deep and do all those types of things, like pay entire roster plus 15 walk-ons, that's really a roster. I made the comment on Twitter. That is totally calculated, the 15 walk-ons. But, like Texas Tech's announcement, or do what Texas has done with every offensive lineman gets $50,000 out of the kindness of our hearts and our pocketbooks, or what Miami's tried doing, or Tennessee with an $8 million quarterback, or, whatever reports are. I mean, I know Baylor's not totally immune to playing in the NIL game, but I do think that they are doing it the right way. That sounds like the most homer thing of all time, but I'm saying do it in the right way in terms of not worried about making big, loud bangs and noises and, flaunting cash and, like, trying to woo people with a bunch of the frilly stuff. Just going about their business, man. Not talking a lot of trash along the way, but speaking up when they need to speak, and only really speaking when there's something to say instead of just talking and yelling all the time. And I like that they've, maybe been a little quiet for some people's taste, but I think they've been the perfect amount of quiet. They don't need to just go and win the offseason. They won the season last year, and that's the goal, is to win that season again, because everybody wins the offseason. Like, if you don't, then, man, that's just miserable. And, sometimes it is miserable. We've had miserable offseasons around here, but this has been eventful. There's been new projects announced. The roster looks good. The recruiting's great. And it's not all just smoke and mirrors with promises and all that kind of other stuff. And some other teams need to do that. But my point being is just, like, they're potentially going to have their best recruiting class ever by just going out and winning, is being due diligent and doing all that and not getting involved in a lot of the other nonsense, so to speak. And I think that's admirable, and I think that's Dave Aranda, and that's obviously that staff, and I think it's unique in some ways to today's college football in the best kind of way. And not to say they're not going to have to go play in the mud sometimes, because they're definitely going to have to, and they're going to have to get a little muddy for Novosad, I'm sure, but it's not just built on toothpicks. This thing is being built on some great foundation, and it's just scary in the best kind of way to think of where this thing could be in 5 years if there's actually a coach who's able to stick around for more than just 2 years of their ceiling, and actually could have a chance to break through it, because we know Browse was starting to knock some cracks in that bad boy, and then all hell broke loose, and Rule was right there on the elevator and ready to push the up button and go all the way up to the ceiling, and he bolted halfway through, So there's been guys who've kind of touched on that and then never have had that chance to, or have chosen not to follow through all the way. So if Aranda can actually stick around and just keep being the guy that he is and the coach that he is and keep building the program the way that he is, and he's going to have to replace some assistants because they're going to get wowed by other schools and they're just going to keep going up the ladder. But I think we all trust him to make good hires because of just his football knowledge and what he's figured out. And so long as you have President AD, the alignment, so to speak, like they've had with Livingstone and Rhodes, and you've got donors willing to spend on new projects, I mean, I think we're at a point where so long as those things remain intact, we could finally see where this thing could really go and how far it can go. And that's exciting, and I hope we get to see that because we've gotten very close, like I mentioned, with a couple of others where, like, man, this thing could really take off, and it sort of does, but we've never seen it take off and just keep seeing how far it could go, and Dave Aranda could do that.
Yeah, and I think this year's class is kind of just the tip of the iceberg, right? I think next year's class, you could be talking about comparing it to the 2016 year, Art Briles' last class before it got dismantled. They were number 16 in the country, and I do think there's a trajectory and a path for Baylor to potentially get there in that 2023 class if they continue to play the way they have been. Like you said, it's built on culture and built on wins, and that's what Baylor's been able to do. And very similar to what Art Briles did. You know, Dave Aranda's found a quarterback and a second quarterback. You know what I mean? Like when you're talking about you get Blake Shapen and you're going to have him for at least a couple years. Then you also have Austin Novosad as well waiting in the wings. And if you're able to have that kind of cohesiveness at the quarterback position, that really helps alleviate some things on your roster. Even if you don't have the strongest roster, if you have a great quarterback, that can kind of make up for a lot of things. So they're in a great position, and they're in great shape to win a lot of games this year and continue building on that culture. And you're right. If Dave Aranda can stick around, we don't know what the ceiling is for Baylor. We don't know. We've never been able to see it. And I think Dave Aranda is getting close to allowing Baylor fans to finally see that.